Well, we've learned about this land's great history and those who helped bring this game to life. But that's enough dilly-dallying. We still have 3 more stages ahead of us, so let's go ahead and begin our expedition into the stranded ship. So right off the bat, you can probably tell that something is not quite right. Just before starting the stage, off camera, I went back to both of the villages and did some shopping. I turned in all the music sheets we had on hand. I bought all but the final health and magic upgrades, which I will do at a later date on camera. And I bought some swanky new armor. That is the most obvious visual change going on right here. This is the Final Guard armor. With the Final Guard, if I die in battle, I will lose half as much gold as I normally do. So instead of losing a quarter of my total gold, I will lose 1/8. I can see this being useful for some more inexperienced players, but for me, it's not too much use. I mean, yeah, I die. I've actually died a number of times in this very LP. But even if I do die, I'm at least pretty good at getting back to where I died in the first place and getting that money back, so I don't get that much use out of this armor. Now, of course, much like Treasure Knight stage being underwater, no retro platformer is complete without a slippy slidey ice world. On ice, Shovel Knight is a bit slower to start, and he is also harder to stop as well. Both of these can be mitigated by judicious use of jumping, rather than trying to handle your momentum on the ground, as Shovel Knight actually has very excellent air control. We are also hitting a point in the game where the enemies are going to get a bit beefier. These Vikings you saw earlier, I cannot pogo on their head is armored, and also they take 3 hits to defeat. You got some real chunky boys going on here. Now with the last 3 stages we had new palette swaps of knights. You remember the red knights, the green knights, and the blue knights. With these 3 stages, we're going to have new mages instead. These white mages don't heal us, they instead shoot ice balls, and those ice balls will drop snowflakes. Now you think a snowflake would be pretty harmless, but I guess Shovel Knight hates snow as much as I do, and it deals damage to him instead. Now these horse things, I honestly am not quite sure what they are. These are also technically a new form of enemy we have already seen previously in Mole Knight stage. But much like in Mole Knight stage, these guys also take 1 hit to defeat, and they don't do anything different, so I guess they're just a different color for the sake of being a different color. Now also in this stage we're going to be seeing a lot of bombs. I want to say this stage has the most bombs out of any level. I'm not sure why someone would rig up a worn down ship in the Arctic with a ton of explosives, but well, here we are. So I really like this screen. When it loads in, you have about a split second to notice that, oh no, you're screwed, you're gonna land on those spikes. But then you don't. The snow saves your life, and you're taught one of the gimmicks of the stage. Touch the snow, spikes become harmless. It's pretty well handled in my opinion. Now here we have the second gimmick of the stage that is honestly kind of beautiful, like aesthetically. We have this weird statue thing that if I stand on it, it sinks down. Then I get off of it, it floats back up. Now surely this thing can do more than that, right? I mean, that's not nearly as beautiful as I led you to believe. Well, of course it does something else. If you hit it, it flies away and it spits out rainbows. And not only that, you can stand on the rainbows. I really like this. I think it's a lot of fun. It opens up the level design in an interesting way, where we're not just on a moving platform with a predetermined path. We actually have to sort of plan where we want to go, and be quick about it, because those rainbows don't last forever. It also gets really fun when combat gets involved, but we'll be seeing that in a little bit. So now that we have some enemies accosting us, you can actually see that you can use the statue as a shield. The spears just bounce right off. Not only that, you can actually use the statue as a battering ram. Now, just like I was saying with the Dust Knuckles back in Knuckler's Quarry, I really like it when weapons and movement mechanics meet each other in the middle. It just opens up a ton of possibility and improvisation. I like it a lot. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know why I'm still destroying checkpoints. I absolutely don't need the money, I'm not hurting for it at all. I think I can easily have enough money to buy the rest of the armors in the game, just from collecting incidental gems, turning in music sheets, and beating bosses, but man, there's just something about smashing those checkpoints that I can't resist doing it. I'm sure I'm gonna regret this when I die later in this stage. The Warhorn is an extremely powerful weapon that I honestly just don't really use as much as I should be able to get away with. The Warhorn is a large radius area of effect weapon that deals a ton of damage. I'm honestly not sure how much damage it does. It does at least 3 damage since I know it can defeat Vikings in a single blow. Get it? Blow? Horn. Anyway, the downside of the Warhorn is that it costs 20 magic to use. It's the most expensive sub-weapon in the game by far, so the uses for it are pretty limited. I don't mean like mechanical uses, I mean actual cost uses. Now that being said, it's not like magic is very hard to find in this game, I say as I'm wasting magic trying to fish over this ledge, so I could probably use the Warhorn a lot more than I already do, I just don't. Now this is a fun little section of the stage. It's 3 screens, and we start at the bottom, and we're going to work our way up. And then we're going to go up again, and then we'll go back down before we go back up again. It's a good way to get more use out of all the screen real estate you have without really getting into backtracking. We are going back into earlier screens, but it's in different sections of the screens. I honestly love that kind of stuff. Here we are coming up into the final stretch of the stage. There's just one more secret in the level over here to the left. Now this can be a pretty daunting music sheet to grab. Moving platforms over spikes generally isn't too hard, but add in ice physics on top of that, you get some real close calls going on into this screen. Something that stands out about this level to me is that both of the music sheets are at the very end of the level. Normally there's one early on, and then one much later, but here they're both just plopped within 2 screens of the boss area. Thankfully this sheet isn't as dangerous to get as the last one, it's just annoying when these enemies don't want to cooperate with you. Alright, let's drag these guys to the right, and bring them back over to the left. Come on. What? Are you for real? Well, I guess I'll be getting some use out of the final guard after all, provided I don't die until I can go collect that gold. As honestly, it's never given me that much trouble to get that music sheet. Normally I get it pretty quickly, but these guys, of course, once I realize they are on camera, they just want to be as frustrating as possible. Alright, come on, buddy. Oh my god! I just want the music sheet. That's so much to ask for. Ah, nuts. Finally! Now we are finally up to the boss. Look out for this pit. Whoop! That is the most harrowing pre-boss room we've seen yet. Polar Knight is a lot like Treasure Knight in the idea that he is more than happy to just stand across the screen from you and abuse his range to his advantage. The snowballs here can be pretty rough since they bounce off the edge of the screen, and even if you deflect them back at Polar Knight, they don't do any damage to him. Polar Knight will just stand there and wait for you to approach, and once you do approach, he's just going to charge to the other side of the screen and chuck all the snowballs at you at once, so you'd better get ready to get in as many hits as you can. Now you'd think for a boss like this that pogoing on him is the way to go, but most of the time you can actually only get in one pogo. After that, he's just going to block high with his own shovel, and if you keep bouncing, he'll push you off and you'll take damage. Now the real kicker is about halfway through the fight he creates these spikes. These aren't fake spikes, these are legitimate instant kill spikes that a lot of people actually have a ton of trouble with. Even here I kind of got stuck above him and I was forced to eat a hit in order to not land on the spikes and die. Now the spikes aren't permanent though, as you will rain down some icicles to cover them with snow and start the spike creation process all over. Polar Knight can be a tough boss, especially if you're fighting him with just your shovel. Now that being said, if you want to bust out the Chaos Sphere, he actually goes down ridiculously fast. But there's something about him and Shovel Knight's mysterious backstory that makes me really interested. How do they know each other? Well, I'm afraid we'll never know.